Hello, this is the OSEHRA VAPALS working group meeting for Wednesday, October 2nd. We will be hearing from Dom and from Larry. Dom is going to tell us, or rather show us, the new sections with regard to smoking history and calculations. Take it away, Dom.
Okay, so I think everybody on the call has probably seen this already, but it's probably still worth walking through so everybody else can see it, and anyone who might look at the recording at some other point can also see it. But what we did here is modified the smoking history sections on the intake form and the follow-up form to always provide you with a cumulative summation of pack years. So we collect smoking history on both of those forms, the intake form once and the follow-up form as many times as there are follow-ups. So what you'll see here as I go through this, there'll be a table that will show you all the recorded inputs of pack years from the intake form and the follow-up form. So before this meeting, I randomly chose a particular patient on our demo system, one that has one intake and one follow-up. So I'm just going to try to jump to that now. That's Rosalind Fidel. And you'll see here that there is one intake and one follow-up. So we'll start on the intake first, and you'll see down towards the bottom here where we collect smoking history, there's this new table that shows this current form, the one with the asterisk, which would be the intake form, the reported date, the number of pack years that were recorded at the time of the intake, and the last column is cumulative. So if there were pack years on the follow-up, they would be added to 22.50, and you'd see the cumulative amount on the follow-up side. So the way this works, you give it the number of cigarettes you smoke per day. That hasn't changed at all. That will in turn calculate the number of packs you smoke per day for you. You give it the number of years, again, as of the date of the form. In this case, it's August 28th of 2018. And beforehand, this had already calculated that out to be 22.5. But I can easily change anything here, and you'll see that it automatically changes in real time what the values will be once we hit save. So just changing from 30 to 35 tells you that if you were to save this form, you would have 26.25 through August 28th, and the total cumulative pack years will also be 26.25. I'm not going to do that just yet. We may come back to that though. Instead, I want to jump over to the follow-up form so you can see how that looks when we modify some data. So I'm just going to come up to the case review and jump onto the follow-up form. One thing to note is that the follow-up date here is December 2nd, 2018. That's important as you come down into the smoking history. So again, we have the current form highlighted with an asterisk, indicating that this is the form you're looking at. Up until now, this follow-up form had no pack years given, because the answer to this question, since your last follow-up, have you smoked cigarettes at all? They said no. For whatever reason, you may want to come in here and change that. So I'm going to do that now so you can see how this works. So we'll say yes. That opens up a couple more fields here. And the first question, how many cigarettes did you smoke per day? And this is really in relation to since the last follow-up. So, or intake at this point. So since August 28th, how many cigarettes do you smoke per day? So if you remember on the intake, they said 30, maybe they've cut back to say 25. Now, one interesting note here is that it'll calculate your pack years for this time period and give you the time period that it's talking about. So based on your 25 cigarettes per day, you have 1 1/4 packs per day, which translates to 0.33 from August 28th, the date of your intake, to December 2nd, which is the date of this particular follow-up. One thing that we added here is the inclusion of the quit date. Now, at this point, they could say that they smoked 25 cigarettes per day, but leading up to the follow-up form of December 2nd, you know, if they had quit, say in October, that would have an impact on the pack years. So if we put in a date here, and I'll actually put in something like October 15th, it's got to be of 2018. And you'll see that that changes your reported pack years, as well as the text that indicates that it's now 0.16 between August 28th and October 15th. The nice thing here too is that as of that, since we edited this in here and we calculated a 0.16, that'll get added to the cumulative amount once we hit the save button. So it says 22.66. I'll actually save this. And if we come back into the follow-up form, that same table should say 22.66. Okay. Now, it works in either direction too. So if there was some reason we needed to modify the original intake form, we can do that. If, say, the information we pulled in was inaccurate and they wanted to change that. So again, I'm on the intake form here. And then they can say, well, it wasn't 15 years, or it was more like 17 years. All right, so that would change their pack years for the intake form leading up to August 28th. Again, the date of the intake from 22.5 to 25.5. All right, that's this number here. And then it's going to tell you that because you're doing that, it's going to make your cumulative 25.66. So again, we'll save that. And again, if we come into either of these forms, the same table will be shown with that updated information. So I think that covers the majority of the functionality around smoking history between those two forms. Are there any questions?
You may want to point out that that doesn't matter how many follow-up forms you have. You can edit any one of the ones in the middle, or the any of the numbers that you put in can be corrected, and the same process applies.
Exactly. Yeah, you could have any number of follow-up forms. I could add another follow-up form here now, and the table would be updated on all previous forms and the intake form.
That's cool. This is the first time I've seen this, even though I've heard you guys talking about it. Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
You're very staticky, Linda.
Okay, thank you. That's probably better.
That's much better, thank you. Okay, so any other questions on this particular topic?
Thank you very much, Dom.
Okay.
Larry, are you ready?
Sure, that's really cool, Dom. Boy, must have taken some work to be able to jump back and recalculate on all the forms. Let's see. Yes, do you want me to share my screen?
If you have something to show.
Well, let me just ask let me just say what we've done and see if it really is necessary to show anything. So we now have an incoming faux TIU document, and the TIU document has a maybe I will very quickly. So I'll try sharing my screen just so we'll see if this.
And to give a little background, we had not initially expected that we would be asked to use HL7 for the transmissions between the Vista server and VAPALS, but we were recently asked to give that a try.
So let's see if you can you see my screen? So
yes.
Basically what we're basically expecting is, this is as an example. So we're expecting a, let me reload that. So we're expecting an ADT message, and it should have as the first line, an ADT, I'm sorry, this is the TIU, there's the mesh header, and then the first line would be a list of the variables as they're going to exist in each line below with the delimiter. So it should be active duty, then address 1, address 2. And if we get a TIU document that looks like this, we understand what this is about, and it is processed through the HL7 incoming messages and will build patient lookup successfully. And so that's working fine. And then there's the other, so the assumption is that we would first get I presume, a number of these faux TIU documents that would preload patient lookup graph completely with say Phoenix's whatever part of their patient database they want to send us. And from then on, after that, we would just get an ADT. And the ADT messages would come in through a standard ADT listener, only we're capturing the information through our ADT listener. And here is here's an example of what happens. So we pull it out from the ADT, the various pieces of information we need, and either add or update an existing entry in the patient lookup. And a couple of these pieces of information are missing as you see them here, but in fact we should be getting it. So we can calculate the last 5, and we can calculate the age. We will be getting their phone number, and we'll be getting their address. So I think almost, except for marital status, let's see, is there another one, Alexis? Except for marital status and active duty, I think that we'll get all the information we need to build a patient lookup, including the ICN and the Social Security number. Yes. So, cool. So that's where we are, and my understanding, I guess I can stop sharing here.
Well, Larry, would you put up the diagram you produced that documents the process?
Sure.
And walk us through the boxes and tell us what they mean.
Sure. So here's the I think Ken is going to straighten this out, but basically here's the HL7 listener. So basically, so there's no programming necessary on their side at all. They just need to set up which you do through the HL7 menus. They just need to set up an event driver, which is what this first blue box is, and an application, and then they set up the subscriber and an application and the link. And if we send them this should be all the information they need to fire us off a TIU document. And once that TIU document comes to us, then we parse it out. Now, if they allow this, then this means we can do the reverse. So we can then start taking the notes that are generated by VAPALS and send them through this one, which would be to send back a TIU note to Phoenix, for instance, and file them to the patient. And that system is also already set up in Vista, so they don't have to do any program. There's already a general purpose TIU system built, and they can do it through the menus. And they won't have to build a routine to put it into the to the patient's progress notes either. That's already in Vista. And so, and then I think we have the ADT one. So the ADT is the same thing. And again, every hospital is already sending out all kinds of, thousands of ADTs all the time. And all they have to do is add us as a subscriber to their ADC messaging. And from that point on, every time they admit, discharge, update, transfer a patient, we'll get an ADT. And every time we get an ADT, we'll pull this information, and we'll either add a new patient or update a patient in the patient lookup graph. outside of building a routine for them to build these first TIUs, I think we already have proof of concept and a working model for TIU and essentially for the ADTs as well. So we are just about done, except for building unit tests on our side. So the question is whether they will know how to build TIU documents and send them to us. And if they need us to, we can certainly put together a little routine that would run through and generate a bunch of TIU documents and send them to the address we give them. And so, you know, we would give them the information they need to send us these documents. So, is there any other questions? So this is the routine. The SAMI VHL is the one that's parsing the initial TIUs, and then there's a SAMI ADT that Alexis is finishing up that parses all incoming ADT messages. Oh, I love the idea of HL7. If they will do this, this gives us a hands-off method for maintaining, just as the VA does in all other ways, patient data.
So, Larry, after it's set up, is there anything that has to be done on the VAPALS side for this to work, or is it all going to be automatic?
It's already, it'll all be automatic. In fact, this is already up and working on my VAPALS Docker. And on the ADTs, we're just finishing up that, but that will also be automatic. So an HL7, an ADT comes in, and it will automatically update or add a new patient lookup. And so there's nothing to be done, nothing for the VAPAL users to do, or anything further for us to do. Once this is working, installed and working, it should be hands-off. You just have to maintain the link, and that's pretty standard process in Vista.
Yeah, great. So that the administrator of the VAPALS server, Artis, I think, would have to be involved, would have to know how to set up that link. But after that, there's nothing he'd have to do on a regular basis at all. Maybe just check that the link is still up.
That's correct. That's correct,
cool.
George. And we have a separate link set up. So there's in fact, here, let me show you very quickly. So basically what he would see is so these are the links, and these links update every time one comes. And actually, I'll send one very quickly just so that we can see. So I'm going to send a TIU note. I'm going to change the ID number here because they should be advancing. And so when let me send a TIU rather than an ADT. Yeah. So I'll advance this to 22. And this is just a little app that I wrote to help me run. So you'll notice that the SAMI TIU receiver says 12, 12, and 18. It's now 13, 13, and 19. There's some buildups, but that doesn't matter. And just now what happened was, because of the way I have it set up, that deleted patient lookup and has rebuilt patient lookup with all of the patients you see here. And so this link just will click along, and this link will click on a lot faster because a lot of ADTs will come through. And the messages will automatically, HL7 messages automatically purge. So all that Artis needs to do is a little bit of setup. Now, I will have a kids routine that will actually build all of this. But there is just a couple of things to do in the HL7 messaging to get them started. And let's see, we have to have the ports open, right? And so Alexis opened 5081 and 5084 for me for the incoming TIUs and HL7s. So there's a little, but very little work. It will be very easy to describe what to do. It's very straightforward, and all of the protocols, the links, and the applications will be built through a KIDS. So it's not necessary to do any of that.
That's great. The one question I had is if you have multiple TIU notes that are going to contain patients, then you don't want to be deleting and rebuilding each time you get a TIU note. You want to check to see. Yeah.
Right. Sorry, George, I shouldn't interrupt. That's exactly right. With each one of these, we check to see whether or not this DFN already exists. And if it does exist, we'll update it, and if it doesn't exist, we'll add it. But I won't delete the entire patient. Once we get started, we do not delete patient lookup again. That's just for testing.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you.
That's right.
That was good. Yeah, that was good. It looks great. It looks great, Larry.
It's pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah, that's the end of it. I hope they. So they have to build these they have to build the initial TIU nodes, and these, by the way, are patterned after the TSV file that was going to happen. So if they had code that was going to build those TSV files, but they decided not to do that, then they actually could copy those into the TIU node, because that's what this is. I just copied Alexis's TIU TSV or whatever it's called.
Right. The only thing I had to do to convert the TSV or to convert the TSV for use in the TIU was to replace all of the tabs in the file with circumflexes.
Cool.
So if they are willing and want some help, we can certainly put together something that will build and generate and send us these.
Great.
Okay, I think that's, unless there's other questions, I think that's it.
Okay, so no other questions, any comments or questions about other things? Well then, it appears we are done, because that's all we had to show today. Thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll try to have another meeting next week. Arda, if there's anything in particular that you would like us to show you, let us know and give us a little time to prepare, and we'd be happy to do so.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good day, everyone.
Bye, guys.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.